The aluminum crutch hit the floor with a sound like a gunshot. Emma Hartley crashed down hard, her shattered leg twisting beneath her. Above her, Brandon Whitmore laughed. "Stay down where you belong," he sneered, shoving her again. 30 people watched. Nobody moved. Then the diner door opened. A man stepped inside with a dog at his side. And everything changed. Before we continue, tell us what city you're watching from in the comments below. Subscribe now and stay until the end. This story will stay with you forever. Emma Hartley's hands were shaking. She gripped the steering wheel of her 12-year-old Honda and stared at the entrance of Magnolia's diner through the windshield. The Help Wanted sign in the window had been there for 2 weeks. She'd driven past it 11 times before finally working up the courage to stop. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "It's just a job interview. You've done harder things." But that was a lie, and she knew it. 6 months ago, she could land a triple axel on ice while 15,000 people held their breath. 6 months ago, she was 3 weeks away from the national championship. 6 months ago, she was Emma Hartley, rising star of American figure skating. Now she was just a 27-year-old woman with a shattered leg, an empty bank account, and a collection of medical bills that grew taller every month. She reached for the forearm crutches in the passenger seat. The aluminum felt cold against her palms. "One step at a time," she said. "That's all, just one step." She opened the car door. 3 blocks away, Lucas Mitchell rolled down the window of his Chevy pickup and let the humid air hit his face. 8 months in Syria. 8 months of sand in his teeth and blood on his hands, and the constant grinding weight of decisions that meant life or death for the men beside him. Now he was home. Home. The word felt strange in his mouth, foreign, like a language he'd once spoken fluently, but had somehow forgotten. Shadow sat in the passenger seat, his ears rotating like satellite dishes scanning every sound. The Belgian Malinois had been Lucas's partner for 4 years, through 3 deployments, 2 firefights that should have killed them both, and 1 helicopter crash that still gave Lucas nightmares. "Easy, boy," Lucas said, reaching over to scratch behind Shadow's ears. "We're just getting breakfast. No tangos here." Shadow's tail thumped once against the seat. He didn't believe it either. Lucas pulled into a parking spot 2 blocks from Magnolia's diner. The place was a local institution. Cheap coffee, good eggs, and the kind of quiet that didn't ask questions about the scars on your hands or the haunted look in your eyes. That was all Lucas wanted. Coffee, eggs, silence. He had no idea that in the next 15 minutes, his entire life would change. Emma had made it halfway across the parking lot when the Maserati nearly killed her. The cherry-red sports car came out of nowhere, engine roaring, tires squealing. It cut so close to her that she felt the wind of its passage ruffle her hair. She stumbled backward, her crutches scraping against asphalt, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Hey," she shouted. "Watch where you're—" But the car was already gone, sliding into the handicapped parking spot directly in front of the diner. The only handicapped spot. The spot she needed because every step was a negotiation with agony, because her reconstructed leg screamed at her with every movement, because the 2-block walk from wherever she parked might as well be a marathon. The driver's door opened, and a young man stepped out. Emma recognized the type immediately. She'd met dozens of them on the skating circuit, rich kids who'd never worked for anything, who moved through life like the world was a theme park built specifically for their entertainment. This one was maybe 25, 26. Designer sunglasses. Polo shirt that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A smirk that said he knew exactly how good-looking he was and expected everyone else to know it too. A woman emerged from the passenger side. blonde, beautiful, bored. She was already scrolling through her phone, not even glancing at the reserved for disabled sign they'd just ignored. "Brandon, this place looks disgusting," the woman said. "It's authentic Tiffany." The young man stretched, rolling his shoulders like a cat. "Dad says the locals love it. Good for the campaign." Emma stood frozen in the parking lot, watching them walk inside without a backward glance. She should say something. She should march up to them and demand they move their car. 6 months ago she would have. 6 months ago she had fire in her belly and steel in her spine. But 6 months ago she could walk without wanting to scream. Emma looked down at her crutches. Then at the diner, 2 blocks of agony away now that the handicapped spot was taken. "One step at a time," she whispered again. She started walking. The interview lasted exactly 3 minutes. Hank Morrison, the owner of Magnolia's Diner, was a kind man with tired eyes and a voice worn smooth by 40 years of customer service. He looked at Emma's resume. He looked at her crutches. He looked at the narrow aisles of his busy restaurant. "I'm sorry, honey," he said, and she could tell he meant it. "It's the insurance. If you fell, if something happened, I just can't take that risk." Emma nodded. She'd heard the same words so many times now that she'd almost stopped feeling them. Almost. "I understand," she said. "Thank you for your time." She turned to leave. The door seemed very far away. The tables between here and there seemed like an obstacle course designed by someone who hated her. "There's a chair by the register," Hank called after her. "If you need to rest a minute before, I'm fine." The words came out sharper than she intended. "Thank you, but I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was exhausted and humiliated, and her leg was screaming, and she had $47 in her bank account, and rent was due in 6 days. But she was not going to cry. Not here. Not in front of all these people. She just had to make it to the door. One step at a time. Brandon Whitmore. 4th was bored. The diner was everything he'd expected: cheap furniture, cheaper coffee, and a clientele that looked like they'd wandered in from a nursing home. He didn't know why his father insisted on these publicity stops. "Connect with the common people," Harrison Whitmore III always said. "Make them think you're one of them." Brandon wasn't one of them. He'd never been one of them. And frankly, he didn't see why he should pretend. "This bacon is disgusting," Tiffany said, pushing her plate away. "Then don't eat it." "I wasn't planning to." She picked up her phone again. "God, there's no service in here. It's like the Stone Age." Brandon watched the other customers with detached amusement. An old couple sharing a newspaper, a group of dock workers arguing about football, a waitress who'd smiled at him a little too long when she took his order. And then something interesting. A young woman was making her way toward the exit. She moved slowly, awkwardly, her weight supported by 2 aluminum crutches. She was pretty in a fragile sort of way. Dark hair pulled back tight. High cheekbones. The kind of posture that suggested she'd been something once before, whatever had happened to her leg. Brandon watched her navigate between the tables, and an idea formed in his mind. "Watch this," he said to Tiffany. He stretched his leg out into the aisle. Emma saw it happen, but too late. One moment she was focused on the door, counting the steps, managing the pain. The next moment something caught her crutch, a shoe, an expensive Italian loafer, and the world tilted sideways. She tried to catch herself. Her free hand grabbed at a table edge, but her fingers slipped. Her crutch clattered away. Her knee hit the tile floor with a crack that sent lightning bolts of agony shooting up her spine. For a moment she couldn't breathe. The pain was too big, too all-consuming. It swallowed everything else: the sounds of the diner, the faces of the other customers, even her own sense of shame. Then she heard the laughter. "Oh my God," a woman's voice, high and cruel. "Can you even walk? Like, is this a medical condition or are you just drunk?" Emma looked up. The blonde woman, Tiffany, was covering her mouth, but her eyes were bright with malicious amusement. Beside her, the young man who'd taken her parking spot was smirking down at Emma like she was the funniest thing he'd seen all week. His leg was still extended into the aisle. He'd done it on purpose. "You tripped me," Emma said. Her voice came out thin, strained. "You did that on purpose." "Excuse me?" The man's smirk widened. "I was sitting here minding my own business. You're the one who can't control those things." He gestured dismissively at her crutches. "Maybe try a wheelchair. Seems more your speed." Something hot and bright flared in Emma's chest. She'd been knocked down a lot over the past 6 months by doctors, by insurance companies, by the universe itself. She'd learned to take it, to nod and smile and save her tears for when she was alone. But this deliberate, casual cruelty, "Apologize," she said. The word surprised her as much as it seemed to surprise him. "What? You heard me." Emma reached for her fallen crutch, pulling herself up to a kneeling position. "You tripped me on purpose. You owe me an apology." The man stared at her for a moment. Then he laughed, a short, ugly sound. "You're joking, right?" He stood up, and suddenly he was towering over her, his shadow falling across her face. "You crash into my table, nearly spill coffee on my girlfriend, and you want me to apologize?" "Brandon," Tiffany said, still giggling. "She's crazy." "I'm not crazy." Emma's voice was stronger now, fed by the anger burning in her chest. "I'm asking for basic human decency. I know that might be a foreign concept to you, but—" Brandon moved. It wasn't a slap. It wasn't a punch. It was worse than either of those, a hard, contemptuous shove against her shoulder that sent her sprawling backward onto the floor. "Stay down," Brandon said, looking at her the way someone might look at a bug they'd just stepped on. "Stay down where you belong." Emma lay on the cold tile floor, staring up at the ceiling. Her leg was screaming. Her shoulder throbbed where he'd shoved her. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Around her, the diner had gone completely silent. 30 people. Maybe more. All of them watching. All of them frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Lucas heard the crash from outside. He was walking toward the diner entrance, shadow healing perfectly at his left side when the sound of something hitting the floor reached his ears. Metal on tile. Then a woman's voice, high and mocking. Then a thud that he recognized. The sound of a body hitting the ground. Lucas stopped. His hand dropped automatically to his hip, where his sidearm would have been if he'd been in theater. Shadow's ears went flat, his posture shifting from relaxed to alert in the space of a heartbeat. 8 years of combat had taught Lucas to read situations in an instant. The sounds filtering through the diner door painted a picture he didn't like. He pushed inside. The first thing Lucas saw was the woman on the floor. Young. Early 20s, maybe. Pretty, but not in a way that called attention to itself. She was lying on her back, one hand pressed against her shoulder, her face a mask of shock and pain, and something else. Something that looked like it might have been fury once, before it got beaten down. Aluminum crutches lay scattered around her. One of them had slid halfway under a table. The second thing Lucas saw was the man standing over her. Young, expensive clothes, soft hands. the kind of posture that said he'd never had to fight for anything in his life. He was smirking down at the woman like she was entertainment, like she was a video on his phone that he could pause and rewind and laugh at whenever he wanted. The third thing Lucas saw was everyone else. 30 people, maybe more, filling the tables and booths of the diner. All of them watching. All of them frozen. None of them moving to help. Lucas had seen that look before. In villages where warlords ruled through terror. In prison camps where the guards beat prisoners while other prisoners looked on. The look of people who'd learned that getting involved meant getting hurt. But this was America. This was supposed to be different. "Help me," the woman whispered, and Lucas wasn't sure if she was talking to him, or to God, or to someone who wasn't there anymore. He didn't hesitate. Brandon was still riding the high of dominance when the door opened. He didn't pay attention at first. Why would he? He was Brandon Whitmore, heir to the Whitmore development fortune son of the man who owned half of Savannah. People opened doors for him. They didn't interrupt his fun. Then he noticed the silence. The diner had been quiet before that frozen, horrified quiet of witnesses who didn't want to be witnesses. But this was different. This was the silence of people who were suddenly looking at something more interesting than the scene Brandon had created. Brandon turned. A man stood in the doorway. Big, broad-shouldered. Flannel shirt, worn jeans, work boots that had seen actual work. His face was weathered hard with the kind of stillness that Brandon associated with statues, or predators. And beside him, Brandon took an involuntary step backward. The dog was massive, black and tan, with intelligent amber eyes that seemed to track every movement in the room simultaneously. It stood perfectly still at the man's left side. No leash, no collar, no sound. Just silent, coiled attention. "Who the hell are you?" Brandon demanded. The man didn't answer. He walked forward, his eyes sweeping the room, taking in everything, the scattered crutches, the woman on the floor, Brandon's position standing over her. "I asked you a question." Brandon's voice rose. He didn't like being ignored. He especially didn't like the way the old-timers at the other tables were looking at this stranger, like they recognized something in him that Brandon couldn't see. "This is a private matter. Mind your own business." The man stopped beside the woman on the floor. He still hadn't spoken a word. Instead, he knelt down, his movements smooth and economical, and extended a hand toward her. "Can you stand?" His voice was calm, quiet, the kind of quiet that made Brandon think of still water hiding deep currents. "Take your time. I've got you." The woman stared at him for a moment, then reached up and gripped his hand. "Hey," Brandon stepped forward. "I said this is private. Back off before I—" The dog growled. It was a low sound, almost sub-vocal, but it stopped Brandon in his tracks like a physical force. The dog hadn't moved. It hadn't bared its teeth. It had just made that sound that bypassed the thinking parts of Brandon's brain and went straight to the primitive lizard core that understood teeth and claws and things that could kill you. "Your dog," Brandon said, and he hated how his voice shook. "Control your dog." The stranger helped the woman to her feet, collected her crutches, handed them to her one at a time, making sure she had her balance before letting go. Only then did he turn to look at Brandon. His eyes were hazel, dark, unreadable. "You pushed her," he said, "not a question. She fell. It's not my fault she can't walk." "I saw you push her." "You didn't see anything." Brandon forced confidence into his voice. He was Brandon Whitmore IV. He didn't back down from drifters in flannel shirts. You walked in after the fact. You don't know what happened. I know exactly what happened. The stranger's voice hadn't risen. His posture hadn't changed. But something in the room shifted some invisible weight that made the air feel heavier. Brandon, Tiffany's voice was high, nervous. Brandon, maybe we should just go. We're not going anywhere. Brandon pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. This maniac and his wolf are threatening us. Put the phone down, the stranger said. Or what? The stranger smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I wasn't talking to you, he said. I was talking to the lady. Ma'am, my name is Lucas. This is Shadow. We're going to make sure you get out of here safely, but first... He turned back to Brandon. I think you owe someone an apology. Brandon stared at him. Then he laughed. An apology? Are you serious? He gestured around the room. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? My family owns half this city. We own the mayor, the police chief, I don't care. The judges, the city council, wait what? I said I don't care. Lucas took a step forward. I don't care about your family. I don't care about your money. I don't care about the fancy car you parked in a handicapped space. I care about the fact that you deliberately injured a woman who was already struggling, and you did it for fun. Brandon's hand went to his pocket. He didn't think about it. It was reflex, the way he always reached for the knife his father had given him, the sleek, expensive switchblade that made him feel powerful. His fingers found the handle. Mister, I'm going to give you one chance, Brandon said. You're going to turn around, walk out that door, and forget this ever happened. Otherwise, the blade clicked open. Several people in the diner gasped. Tiffany screamed. Lucas didn't move. Otherwise, Brandon continued, waving the knife toward the dog, I'm going to gut your wolf, and then I'm going to have you arrested for assault, and then I'm going to make sure you never work again in any city where my father has influence, which is every city. The knife gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Brandon smiled. This was more like it. This was the natural order of things, the strong dominating the weak, the rich crushing the poor. This was how the world worked. Last chance, he said. Walk away. Lucas looked at the knife. Then he looked at Brandon. Then he said a single word. Shadow. What happened next took less than 4 seconds. The dog moved like liquid darkness flowing across the space between them faster than Brandon's eyes could track. One moment it was standing by the stranger. The next moment it was between Brandon and the woman. Teeth bared a growl rumbling in its chest, like distant thunder. Brandon stumbled backward, his knife hand wavering. Get it away from me. Drop the knife, Lucas said. I'll kill it. I swear to God I'll... Brandon lunged. He didn't know why. Panic, maybe, or wounded pride, or just the desperate need to prove that he was still in control, that the world still bent to his will. His arm came down in a wild slash aimed at the dog's neck. The dog snapped its jaws but held its ground, and Lucas moved. Brandon didn't see him coming. One moment the stranger was 6 feet away. The next moment a hand like a steel vice closed around Brandon's wrist, stopping his arm mid-swing. There was a twist, a pressure, a white-hot flare of pain, and then Brandon was face down on a table, pancakes smearing across his cheek syrup in his hair, his arm bent behind him at an angle that made him scream. The knife clattered to the floor. A real man, Lucas said softly, his mouth close to Brandon's ear. Never raises his hand against someone weaker than him, and he never threatens a dog with more honor than he'll ever have. Brandon whimpered, actually whimpered like a child. Apologize, Lucas said. I'm sorry. Not to me. Brandon twisted his head, trying to see through tear-blurred eyes. The woman with the crutches was standing by the door, her face pale, her hands shaking. "I'm sorry," Brandon gasped. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Lucas held him there for another heartbeat. Then he let go. Brandon collapsed into the booth, clutching his wrist, all the arrogance drained from his face. Tiffany was crying, mascara running down her cheeks. The other customers were staring with expressions that ranged from shock to something that looked almost like satisfaction. Lucas picked up the switchblade, folded it closed, and slipped it into his pocket. Then he turned to Emma and held out his hand. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you out of here." They made it to the sidewalk before the sirens started. Emma leaned against the brick wall of the diner, her heart pounding, her legs shaking. The man, Lucas, stood beside her, his dog sitting at perfect attention between them. "Are you okay?" Lucas asked. I don't know." Emma realized she was laughing, a thin, hysterical sound. "That was you just... He had a knife, and you... He wasn't going to use it." "How do you know?" "Because he held it wrong." Lucas's voice was matter-of-fact. "Blade out, arm extended. Classic intimidation posture. Someone who actually knows how to use a knife holds it close to the body blade down. He was just waving it around to look scary." Emma stared at him. "Who are you?" Before Lucas could answer, the police car screeched into the parking lot. The doors flew open. 2 officers jumped out, hands on their holsters, and Emma felt her brief moment of relief shatter into pieces, because she recognized the deputy in the lead, Marcus Webb. She'd seen him at the Whitmore campaign events, hovering at the edge of photos, always near the family. Her stomach dropped. Webb's eyes swept the scene, the diner, the crowd of onlookers, Brandon Whitmore stumbling out the door, clutching his wrist, Tiffany shrieking about assault. His gaze settled on Lucas. "You," Webb said. "Hands where I can see them. Now." Lucas raised his hands slowly, palms out. "Officer, I can explain," Emma started. "Ma'am, step away from the suspect." "He's not a suspect. That man in there, Brandon Whitmore, he attacked me. He tripped me. He pushed me down. He pulled a knife." Webb wasn't listening. He was already moving toward Lucas, handcuffs out. "Sir, you're under arrest for aggravated assault on Brandon Whitmore IV. You have the right to remain silent. This is wrong." Emma's voice rose. "He saved me. He didn't do anything wrong." Webb glanced at her with cold eyes. "Ma'am, I have a victim with a broken wrist and witnesses who say this man attacked him unprovoked. Now step back before I arrest you for obstruction." Brandon had reached the sidewalk now, surrounded by Tiffany and the second officer. He was cradling his wrist, his face twisted with pain and fury, but when he looked at Lucas being handcuffed, something changed. The smirk came back. "That's him, officer," Brandon said. "That's the maniac who attacked us. And his wolf, that thing tried to maul me. It should be put down." "No," Emma stepped forward. "The dog didn't touch him. It was defending. Ma'am, final warning." Lucas met Emma's eyes. His face was calm, impossibly maddeningly calm, even as the cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "The truth has a way of coming out." Webb grabbed his arm and started dragging him toward the squad car. Shadow whined, looking from his handler to Emma, and back again, uncertain for the first time. "What about the dog?" the second officer asked. "Animal control," Webb said. "Tell them we've got a vicious animal. Needs to be contained pending investigation." "He's not vicious." Emma reached for Shadow, but the officer stepped between them. "Ma'am, that animal could be dangerous. Step back." "He won't hurt anyone. He's trained. But they weren't listening. They were already loading Lucas into the back of the squad car, already calling for an animal control van, already writing a story where the hero became the villain and the villain became the victim. Emma stood on the sidewalk, helpless, watching justice turn inside out. Lucas looked at her through the car window. "Stay safe," he mouthed. Then the squad car pulled away, taking with it the only person who'd stood up for her in 6 months. Emma looked down at Shadow. The dog was staring after the car, every muscle tense, a soft whine escaping his throat. "It's okay," she said, though it wasn't. "We'll figure this out. The animal control van rounded the corner. Shadow's ears went flat, and Emma realized with horrible clarity that she was about to lose the dog, too. She had to make a choice. She had 3 seconds to make it. She looked at the van. She looked at Shadow. She remembered the way Lucas had knelt beside her, his voice calm and sure. "I've got you." Emma grabbed Shadow's collar. "Run," she said. And they did. Emma ran until her leg screamed for mercy. Shadow kept pace beside her, his body low, his eyes scanning every direction. The dog seemed to understand that something was wrong, that the rules had changed, that they were running from the very people who were supposed to protect them. 3 blocks, 4, 5. Emma ducked into an alley behind a barber shop, pressing her back against the brick wall, gasping for air. Her injured leg throbbed with every heartbeat. Sweat poured down her face. Her crutches, she'd left them behind. She'd left everything behind. "Good boy," she whispered to Shadow, her hand trembling on his collar. "Good boy. We're okay. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with shaking fingers. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "They're looking for you. Don't go home. Meet me at Patterson's Law Office, 714 Whitaker Street. Come alone except for the dog." A friend, Emma stared at the message. It could be a trap. It could be the Whitmores trying to find her. It could be anyone. But what choice did she have? She looked down at Shadow. The dog looked back at her with those intelligent amber eyes waiting for a decision. "I hope you know something I don't," Emma said. She started walking. The Chatham County Sheriff's Station smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Lucas sat in the interrogation room, his hands cuffed to a metal table, his eyes fixed on the 2-way mirror across from him. He'd been in rooms like this before, not as a suspect, but as an interrogator. He knew the games, the long waits designed to break down resistance, the uncomfortable chairs, the harsh lighting. They'd taken Shadow. That was the part that ate at him. His partner, his friend, his brother in everything but blood, locked in some concrete kennel, somewhere confused and alone. "Hold on, boy. I'm coming for you." The door opened. Deputy Webb walked in first, his face smug with satisfaction. Behind him came another man, older, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. Lucas recognized power when he saw it. "Mr. Mitchell?" The older man sat down across from Lucas, crossing his legs like they were having a casual conversation. "My name is Harrison Whitmore. I believe you've met my son." Lucas said nothing. "Your Navy," Whitmore continued. "SEAL, if I'm not mistaken. The way you disarmed Brandon, that's not something they teach in basic training." He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. "I have friends at the Pentagon. Made some calls. You're quite decorated. Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Syria. A genuine American hero. Get to the point." Whitmore's smile widened. "Direct. I appreciate that. Here's the point, Mr. Mitchell. My son made a mistake today. He can be impulsive, but you humiliated him in public in front of potential voters. That's unacceptable." Your son attacked a disabled woman. My son tripped. The woman Sekul. It was an accident. He pushed her. Twice. Then he pulled a knife. Whitmore waved his hand dismissively. Details. History is written by the victors, Mr. Mitchell. And in Savannah, I hold the pen. Lucas leaned forward, the chain of his cuffs rattling against the table. What do you want? I want you to plead guilty to simple assault. Misdemeanor. You'll get probation, maybe community service. The charges go away quietly, you go back to Virginia, and we all pretend this never happened. And if I don't? Whitmore's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something predatory. If you don't, then I'm afraid things get complicated. You see, your deployment orders came through this morning. You're due at Little Creek in 9 days for movement to an undisclosed location. Very important mission from what I understand. Lucas felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. I've already spoken to Judge Caldwell, Whitmore continued. He's prepared to deny bail, flight risk given your military obligations. You'll sit in county lockup while the legal process plays out. A week passes, then 2. Then your deployment date comes and goes. You can't, I can. Hey. Whitmore stood up, buttoning his jacket. You know what the Navy calls a SEAL who doesn't show up for movement, a deserter. By the time you get out of here, if you get out, your security clearance will be revoked. Your trident will be pulled. Your career will be over. He leaned down, his face inches from Lucas's. I won't just put you in jail, Mr. Mitchell. I'll erase everything you've ever worked for. I'll turn you into exactly what that police report says: you are a violent, unstable drifter with nothing to show for his life. The room was silent. Lucas looked up at Whitmore, his face expressionless. You think you're scary, Lucas said quietly. You're not. I've faced men who would skin you alive for the fun of it. I've watched friends die in my arms. I've made decisions that cost lives and saved lives, and I've lived with every single one of them. He leaned back in his chair. You're just a rich man who's never been told no, and you have no idea what you've just started. Whitmore stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. 9 days, Mr. Mitchell. Enjoy them. He walked out. The door slammed shut behind him. Lucas sat alone in the silence, his mind already racing through tactical options. Hold on, Shadow. Hold on, Emma. This isn't over. The law office was nothing like Emma expected. She'd imagined glass towers and marble floors. Instead, she found a crumbling antebellum mansion on a street time seemed to have forgotten. Weeping willows draped over a rusted iron fence. Paint peeled from the shutters. A brass plaque by the door read, Samuel T. Patterson, Attorney at Law. Est 1962. Emma hesitated on the porch. Shadow pressed against her leg, a low whine in his throat. The door opened before she could knock. An old man stood in the doorway. He was at least 80, maybe older, with skin like weathered leather and eyes that sparkled with sharp intelligence. He leaned on a cane topped with a carved eagle's head, and he wore a linen suit that looked like it had been fashionable 50 years ago. You must be Emma Hartley, he said. His voice was deep rough like gravel in a blender. Get inside, quickly. They've got people watching the streets. Emma didn't ask who they were. She already knew. Inside the office was chaos. Papers everywhere. Books stacked floor to ceiling. A ceiling fan that wobbled dangerously with every rotation. The old man Patterson led her to a leather chair that looked older than her grandmother and gestured for her to sit. Who are you? Emma asked. How did you know to contact me? I was at the diner. Patterson lowered himself into a chair across from her, wincing slightly. Corner booth. Been going to Magnolia's every Tuesday morning for 43 years. Watched the whole thing unfold. Then you saw, I saw that Whitmore boy trip you. I saw him push you down. I saw that young man with the dog save your life. and I saw Marcus Webb arrest the wrong person." Patterson's eyes hardened. "I've been watching the Whitmores operate in this city for 6 decades. They think they own everything. They think they can buy justice like they buy everything else." "Why do you care?" Patterson smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because I've been waiting a very long time for a chance to take them down. And you, Miss Hartley, just handed me one." Shadow had settled at Emma's feet, his head resting on her shoe. She reached down to stroke his fur, trying to process everything. "Lucas, the man who helped me, they arrested him. They're saying he assaulted Brandon." "I know. Harrison Whitmore visited him an hour ago, made threats. The usual playbook: bury him in legal fees, delay the trial until he misses his deployment, destroy his career." "That's insane. He's innocent." "Innocence doesn't matter to people like Whitmore. Power matters, and right now they have all of it." Patterson leaned forward. "But power can be taken. Evidence can be found. The truth has a way of surfacing if you know where to look." "What evidence?" "The diner's security footage. Webb said it was corrupted." Patterson's smile turned wolfish. "Of course it was. Whitmore's people probably wiped it within an hour. But here's the thing about cameras, Miss Hartley. They're everywhere these days. Traffic cams, ATM machines, dashboard cameras." He paused. "There was a delivery truck parked across the street from the diner when all this happened. I saw it through the window. Big white cab blue logo, a pelican holding a shrimp. Low-tide seafood distributors." Emma's heart began to pound. "You think—" "I think if that truck has a dash cam, and if that dash cam was pointing at the diner window, then we have everything we need." Patterson pulled a notepad from his jacket pocket. "I've already got my people tracking down the truck. But there's a problem." "What problem?" "If we can figure this out, so can Whitmore. He has resources we don't. Money, connections, people who will do whatever he tells them." Patterson met her eyes. "We're in a race, Miss Hartley, and right now we're losing." Lucas didn't sleep that night. He sat on the concrete bench of his holding cell, running scenarios in his head. Escape was impossible without violence, and violence would only make things worse. Legal channels were compromised. Whitmore owned the judge, the DA, probably half the lawyers in the city. But Lucas hadn't survived 3 combat deployments by giving up when the odds were against him. Think. There's always an angle. Always a weakness. His mind drifted to his team. Ghost, the intelligence specialist who could hack into any system on Earth. Saint, his second in command, steady as a rock. Bear Viper, the rest of the wolf pack. They were scattered across the country right now on leave, living their civilian lives. But if he called... No, he couldn't involve them. This was his problem. His fight. Emma. The thought came unbidden. The woman with the crutches. The fire in her eyes when she'd demanded an apology. The way she'd tried to defend him, even as Webb slapped the cuffs on. She'd run. He'd seen it through the squad car window, her grabbing Shadow's collar, the two of them disappearing into the crowd before animal control could get to them. Good. Smart. Brave. Stay safe. Stay hidden. And whatever you do, don't trust anyone. Emma couldn't go home. Patterson had been clear about that. Whitmore will have people watching your place. Probably already filed a police report saying you stole the dog. The moment you show up, they'll arrest you. Then where am I supposed to go? I have a guest room. Nothing fancy, but it's safe. My house hasn't been broken into in 62 years, partly because of the security system, partly because everyone in this city knows I keep a loaded shotgun by the bed. So Emma stayed. She lay awake in the darkness, listening to the old house creak and settle. Shadow curled up on a rug beside the bed. Every time a car passed on the street below, her heart jumped. This is insane. 24 hours ago, I was just trying to get a job. Now I'm hiding from a billionaire, harboring a fugitive dog, and putting my faith in an 80-year-old lawyer who looks like he might keel over any minute. But what choice did she have? She thought about Lucas, about the way he'd knelt beside her on that diner floor, his hands gentle, his voice calm. About the way he'd faced down Brandon without flinching, without fear. "I've got you." Nobody had said that to her in 6 months. Not the doctors, not the insurance companies, not her own family who'd stopped calling after the 2nd month when it became clear she wasn't going to magically recover and get back on the ice. "I've got you." She closed her eyes and tried to believe it. Morning came with bad news. Patterson was on the phone when Emma limped into his kitchen. His face was gray, his jaw tight. "I understand," he said into the receiver. "Keep looking. Call me the moment you find anything." He hung up. "What happened? The truck?" Patterson poured himself a cup of coffee, his hands not quite steady. "Low-tide seafood distributors. My investigator tracked down their fleet records. Truck number 12 was en route to Jacksonville yesterday, but it's gone." "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "I mean someone got there first. The driver showed up this morning to find his dash cam ripped out of the cab. The whole unit, camera, memory card, everything. Just gone." Emma felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "Whitmore. Has to be. He's got people everywhere. Private investigators, corrupt cops, probably some less savory types too." Patterson sat down heavily. "Without that footage, it's your word against Brandon Whitmore's. And in this city, that's not a fight we can win. So that's it. We just give up." Patterson looked at her. "I didn't say that." "Then what?" His phone rang again. Patterson answered, listened for 30 seconds, and his entire expression changed. "You're sure?" He was already on his feet. "Where?" "When?" A pause. "Don't let them leave. We're on our way." He hung up. "What is it?" Emma demanded. "The driver, Earl Jenkins. He just walked into my investigator's office." Patterson was moving now, grabbing his jacket, his keys. "He's got a copy." "A copy of what?" "The footage." Patterson's eyes were blazing. "He backs up his dash cam to the cloud every night. Has for years. His wife made him do it after a fender bender wanted proof in case anyone ever tried to blame him." He grabbed Emma's arm. "Whitmore got the physical camera, but the data is still out there." Emma's heart was pounding. "Then we can prove everything. Brandon's assault, the knife, Lucas's innocence." Patterson was already heading for the door. "But we have to move fast. If Whitmore finds out the cloud backup exists." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They were too late. When they arrived at the investigator's office, the door was hanging open, the lock broken. Inside, papers were scattered everywhere, a computer monitor lay shattered on the floor, and a pool of blood darkened the carpet. Patterson made a sound like he'd been punched in the gut. "Earl," he whispered. "Earl, where are you?" They found the driver, in the back room slumped against a filing cabinet. His face was bruised, his lips split, but he was alive, barely conscious, breathing in shallow gasps. "Mr. Patterson," Earl's voice was a rasp. "They came, 3 of them, asked about the backup." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing." Earl tried to smile through bloody teeth. "Told them to go to hell, but they took my phone. If they can get into it." "The password," Patterson said urgently. "Earl, what's your cloud password? Same as everything. My anniversary, 09/15/82. Patterson was already on his phone, dialing frantically. "Who are you calling?" Emma asked. "Someone who can get to that cloud account before Whitmore's people do." He held up a hand, listening. "Yes, this is Samuel Patterson. I need to speak to Jackson Rodriguez immediately. Tell him it's about Operation Echo. He'll know what that means." Emma watched him, her mind racing. Jackson Rodriguez. Operation Echo. She had no idea what any of it meant. But something in Patterson's voice, something urgent and military and precise, told her that the game had just changed. "Who is Jackson Rodriguez?" she asked when Patterson hung up. "A friend of a friend." Patterson looked at her. "More importantly, he's the best hacker on the Eastern Seaboard. If anyone can secure that footage before Whitmore erases it, he can." "How do you know him?" Patterson smiled grimly. "I defended his father on a murder charge in 1987. The boy was 12 years old. He never forgot." He turned to Earl, helping the injured man to his feet. "Let's get you to a hospital." And then, his phone buzzed. A text message. 4 words. "Got it. Footage secured." Patterson closed his eyes. Thank God. Emma felt something break loose in her chest, something that might have been hope. "We have the evidence," she said. "We can prove Lucas is innocent." "We have evidence," Patterson corrected. "But having it and using it are 2 different things. Whitmore controls the local courts. The DA is his nephew. The judge golfs at his country club." He met Emma's eyes. "If we try this case in Savannah, we'll lose. The evidence will be suppressed, the witnesses intimidated, the jury rigged. Then what do we do?" Patterson's smile returned, sharp, predatory, dangerous. "We don't fight in Savannah. We fight in federal court. We take this case so public, so national, that Whitmore can't bury it." He gripped Emma's shoulder. "But to do that, we need more than a video. We need Lucas Mitchell out of that cell and ready to tell his story. And we need something Whitmore doesn't have." "What's that?" "An army." The call came at midnight. Lucas was lying on his bunk, staring at the ceiling when the guard appeared at his cell door. "Mitchell, you've got a visitor." "Visiting hours ended at 8. "Special exception." The guard unlocked the door. "Move." Lucas followed him down the corridor, his instincts screaming that something was wrong. Midnight visits didn't happen. Not in county lockup, not unless someone with serious pull had made arrangements. Whitmore. Has to be. Come back to gloat. Or make another offer. But when he entered the visitation room, it wasn't Whitmore waiting for him. It was a woman. Young. Dark hair pulled back tight. High cheekbones. A cane in her hand instead of crutches. Emma Hartley. And sitting beside her, a German shepherd, with intelligent amber eyes, who leaped to his feet the moment Lucas walked in. Shadow. Lucas dropped to his knees as the dog barreled into him, tail-wagging, tongue, licking every inch of his face. He buried his hands in Shadow's fur, feeling the tension drain from his body for the first time in 2 days. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. "Hey, I missed you too." When he finally looked up, Emma was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "How?" he asked. "How did you get in here? How did you get him out?" "Long story." Emma sat down across from him. Shadow pressed against Lucas's side. "The short version is that I found a lawyer, a good one. He's been working some angles. Patterson, I've heard of him. He's heard of you too. So have some other people." Emma leaned forward. "Lucas, we found the footage. The dash cam from the delivery truck, we have it. Everything. Brandon tripping me, the shove, the knife. All of it." Lucas felt something shift in his chest. But there's a problem. Whitmore owns this city. If we try to use the footage here, he'll bury it. The only way to win is to take this federal, make it national news, turn it into a story so big that Whitmore can't silence it." And how do we do that? Emma hesitated. Patterson has a plan, but it requires something you might not be willing to give. Name it. Your team. Emma met his eyes. He says we need an army. He says you have one. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. The wolf pack. His brothers. The men he'd bled with, killed with, nearly died, with 12 times over. He'd sworn he wouldn't drag them into this. His fight, his problem. But Emma was right. He couldn't win this alone. There's a number, he said finally. In my wallet. They took it when they booked me, but it should still be in property. 555-0127. Ask for Ghost. Ghost. He'll understand. Tell him Echo Sierra 7 status black. Tell him I need the pack. Emma nodded, memorizing the number. One more thing, Lucas said. He reached out, took her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. Thank you. For not running. For not giving up. Emma looked down at their joined hands. You said you had me, she said quietly. In the diner. You said, I've got you. She looked up. Nobody said that to me in a long time. I wasn't going to let you face this alone. The guard appeared at the door. Time's up. Emma stood, but Lucas held onto her hand for one more moment. When this is over, he said, I'm going to buy you the biggest breakfast Savannah has ever seen. Emma smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. I'm going to hold you to that. She walked out. Shadow whined, pressing closer to Lucas. Go with her, Lucas said, scratching behind the dog's ears. Protect her until I get out. Shadow looked at him with those intelligent eyes, understanding somehow. Then he turned and followed Emma through the door. Lucas sat alone in the visitation room. But for the first time since this nightmare began, he didn't feel alone. The pack was coming, and the Whitmores had no idea what was about to hit them. The call went out at Euro 300. Ghost received it first, his monitors glowing blue in the darkness of his basement apartment. He listened to Emma's voice, shaky but determined, repeating the words Lucas had given her. Echo Sierra 7. Status black. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Within 60 seconds, he'd sent the signal. Bear was in Montana helping his brother rebuild a barn. He dropped his hammer mid-swing when his phone buzzed. Read the message. Started packing. Viper was in Texas, teaching his nephew to shoot. He handed the rifle to the boy's father, said he had to go, and was on the road before anyone could ask where. Saint was closest, just 2 states over in North Carolina. He'd been expecting the call since the moment he saw Lucas's face on the news. The duffel bag by his door had been packed for 3 days. By sunrise, they were converging on Savannah like wolves answering a howl. The pack was coming home. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat in Patterson's kitchen. Shadow pressed against her legs, staring at the phone like it might explode. Patterson had gone to bed hours ago, but she couldn't close her eyes. Every time she tried, she saw Brandon Whitmore's face, his smirk, the casual cruelty in his eyes as he'd shoved her to the floor. She'd spent 6 months feeling helpless, broken, less than human. Not anymore. The phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m. Miss Hartley. A man's voice, low and controlled. This is Caleb St. John. My friends call me Saint. I'm calling about a mutual friend. Lucas told me to expect you. Good, I'm 30 minutes out. There are 4 others behind me. We need a place to meet somewhere private, somewhere Whitmore's people won't be watching. Emma looked at Shadow. The dog's ears were perked forward, alert. Patterson's house, she said. I'll text you the address. Understood. One more thing, Miss Hartley. What? Lucas trusts you. That means we trust you. But understand something, when we come for our brother, nothing stands in our way. Nothing." The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone in her hand. For the first time in 6 months, she felt something that wasn't fear or despair. She felt dangerous. Saint arrived first, driving a black pickup that looked like it had seen combat. He was tall, lean, with a scar running down his left cheek and eyes that seemed to see through walls. He didn't smile when Emma opened the door. He just nodded once and walked past her into the house. "Where's the lawyer?" "Still asleep. It's barely 7. Wake him. We don't have time." Bear came next, and Emma understood immediately why they called him that. The man was enormous, 6'4", maybe 6'5", with shoulders that barely fit through the doorway. But his handshake was surprisingly gentle, and his voice was soft. "You're the one who ran with Shadow," Bear said. "Good instincts. Most people would have frozen." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Bear smiled. "You made the right one." Viper was quieter, darker. He moved like smoke, barely making a sound, his eyes constantly scanning, analyzing, calculating. He didn't shake Emma's hand. He just looked at her for a long moment, then gave a small nod of approval. "Lucas was right about you," Viper said. "Right about what? He said you had fight in you. Most civilians don't." Ghost arrived last, and he was nothing like the others. Pale thin, with dark circles under his eyes and fingers that never stopped moving. He carried a laptop bag like other men carried weapons, and immediately started setting up equipment on Patterson's kitchen table. "All right," Ghost said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Here's what we know. Harrison Whitmore III controls approximately 40% of Savannah's commercial real estate. His company has donated to every successful political campaign in Chatham County for the last 20 years. The current DA is his nephew. The sheriff is his golf buddy. Judge Raymond Caldwell owes his seat to Whitmore campaign contributions." "We know all this," Patterson said, emerging from his bedroom looking rumpled but alert. "The question is how we break through it." "You break through it by going around it." Ghost pulled up a map on his screen. "Local courts are compromised. State courts are dicey. Whitmore has friends in Atlanta too. But federal court is a different story. If we can get this case in front of a federal judge, Whitmore's influence drops to almost 0. "How do we do that?" Emma asked. "Civil rights violation." Ghost grinned. Deputy Webb arrested Lucas without probable cause, using his authority to protect a connected citizen who'd just committed assault. That's a federal offense. We file a Section 1983 complaint. We get federal jurisdiction. We bypass every single judge Whitmore has in his pocket. Patterson was nodding slowly. "It could work, but we need more than the footage. We need witnesses. We need a pattern of behavior." "Already working on it." Ghost's fingers never stopped moving. "Turns out Brandon Whitmore has quite a history. Assault charge at UGA dismissed when the victim suddenly recanted. DUI in Charleston sealed record. Sexual harassment complaint from an intern at Daddy's company settled out of court with a very generous NDA." He looked up. "This isn't the first time he's hurt someone. It's just the first time someone fought back." Saint stepped forward. "Evidence is good, but we also need to send a message. Whitmore thinks he's untouchable. We need to show him he's not." "What are you suggesting?" Patterson asked. Saint smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Psychological warfare." 2 hours later, Harrison Whitmore III looked out his office window and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. There was a man sitting on the bench across the street. Big. Massive, really. He was reading a newspaper, casual as could be, but his eyes kept drifting up to Whitmore's window. Just looking. Just watching. Whitmore's private security chief stood beside him. "He's been there since 8 a.m., sir. Hasn't moved." "Who is he? We're working on it. But, sir, he's not the only one." "What do you mean?" The security chief led Whitmore to another window, this one overlooking the parking garage. Another man stood near the entrance, lean, scarred, arms crossed over his chest. "And there's one more at the coffee shop next door, and another outside your son's apartment." Whitmore's jaw tightened. "They're not doing anything illegal, just standing there." "Yes, sir, but the message is clear." "What message?" The security chief swallowed. "That they can get to you, anytime they want." Whitmore stood very still for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. "Get me Webb. Now." A Deputy Webb arrived at Whitmore's office 40 minutes later, sweating through his uniform. "They're SEALs," Webb said, pacing the room. "I ran the plates on their vehicles. Every single one of them served with Mitchell. Silver Stars, Bronze Stars combat tours, these aren't street thugs, Mr. Whitmore. These are trained killers." "I don't care what they are." Whitmore's voice was ice. "I want them gone." "On what grounds? They haven't done anything wrong. They're just standing there." "Then find grounds. Plant something. Create a reason." Webb stopped pacing. "Sir, with all due respect, these aren't the kind of men you plant evidence on. If they catch us, are you telling me you're afraid?" Webb didn't answer. He didn't have to. Whitmore stared at him with contempt. "Get out. You're useless." After Webb left, Whitmore sat alone in his office, staring at the man on the bench across the street. The big one. Bear his people had finally identified him, looked up at that exact moment and waved, actually waved, like they were old friends. Whitmore's hand trembled as he reached for his phone again. He needed to make another call. Someone who didn't play by the rules. Someone who could make problems disappear permanently. It was time to escalate. The attack came at midnight. Emma was asleep in Patterson's guest room. Shadow curled at the foot of her bed when the dog's head suddenly snapped up. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Emma sat up, her heart already pounding. "What is it, boy? What?" The window shattered. Something flew through the broken glass and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Emma screamed, scrambling backward as flames erupted across the carpet. Molotov cocktail. Someone had just firebombed the house. "Patterson!" Emma grabbed Shadow's collar and ran for the door. "Patterson, fire!" The hallway was already filling with smoke. Emma heard the old lawyer coughing somewhere ahead of her, heard his door slam open, heard him shouting her name. "I'm here." She stumbled through the darkness, Shadow pulling her forward. "I'm okay, Another crash. Another bottle. The kitchen erupted in flames. They burst out the front door together, Patterson in his bathrobe. Emma in bare feet, Shadow barking furiously. The yard was lit orange by the spreading fire shadows dancing across the lawn. And there at the edge of the property, a car was pulling away. No headlights, no plates. But Emma saw the face in the driver's seat, illuminated for just a moment by the flames. Deputy Marcus Webb. Saint was there in 90 seconds. He'd been watching the house from down the street, rotating shifts with Viper. When he saw the flames, he sprinted faster than he'd ever run outside of combat. "Anyone hurt?" He grabbed Emma's arms, checking her for injuries. "No, we're okay, but the house can be rebuilt. People can't." Saint's eyes scanned the street, searching for threats. "Did you see who did it?" "Webb. I saw his face." Saint went very still. Then he pulled out his phone. "Ghost. We need everything on Deputy Marcus Webb. Bank records, phone calls, emails, everything. And I mean everything. He listened for a moment. No, I don't care if it's illegal. The man just tried to burn 2 civilians alive. He hung up. Patterson was standing in his yard watching his home of 40 years burn. Fire trucks were coming. Emma could hear the sirens in the distance, but it was already too late. The old house was fully engulfed. "Mr. Patterson," Emma said softly. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. If I hadn't—" "Don't!" Patterson's voice was steady, his eyes reflecting the flames. "This isn't your fault. This is Whitmore's fault, and he just made the biggest mistake of his life." "What do you mean?" Patterson turned to look at her. There was something in his eyes that Emma hadn't seen before, something fierce and unbreakable. "I've been practicing law for 60 years, he said. "I've won cases I should have lost and lost cases I should have won. But I've never had a defendant's own people commit arson on a witness's home." He smiled grimly. "Do you understand what Webb just did? He gave us federal jurisdiction on a silver platter. Witness tampering. Attempted murder. Conspiracy to obstruct justice. This isn't a local matter anymore, Miss Hartley. This is a federal crime." Saint was listening, his phone still in his hand. "You can prove Webb works for Whitmore." "I don't have to prove it. I just have to allege it. Once the FBI gets involved, they'll find the connection themselves." Patterson looked at the burning house one more time. "Call your friend Ghost. Tell him to secure everything he's found on Webb. Then tell him to start digging into Harrison Whitmore's finances, campaign contributions, shell companies, offshore accounts. You think Whitmore's dirty?" Patterson laughed a harsh, bitter sound. "So nobody gets as rich as Harrison Whitmore by playing clean. There are bodies buried somewhere, metaphorically speaking. Maybe literally." He squared his shoulders. "We're not just going to clear Lucas Mitchell's name. We're going to tear down the whole corrupt system that tried to destroy him." The FBI arrived at dawn. 2 agents, stone-faced and professional, taking statements and photographs and samples of the accelerant used in the fire. They were careful not to say too much, but Emma could read their body language. They were interested. Very interested. "Mr. Patterson," one of the agents said, "you're alleging that Deputy Webb committed this arson on behalf of Harrison Whitmore III. "I'm not alleging anything yet." Patterson was back in lawyer mode, crisp and precise, despite his bathrobe and bare feet. "I'm providing a witness statement. Miss Hartley saw Deputy Webb's face in the vehicle fleeing the scene. She'll testify to that under oath. And the connection to Whitmore. Deputy Webb arrested Lucas Mitchell for assault after Mitchell defended Miss Hartley from an attack by Brandon Whitmore, the defendant's son. The charges are fraudulent, as we can prove with video evidence. Webb has a documented relationship with the Whitmore family going back 15 years. The pattern speaks for itself." The agent made a note. "We'll need to see this video evidence. I'll have copies delivered to your office by noon." Patterson smiled. "Along with a formal complaint alleging civil rights violations under Section 1983. I trust that will be sufficient to establish federal jurisdiction." The agent's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Patterson." After the FBI left, Emma found Saint standing on the sidewalk staring at the smoldering remains of Patterson's house. "He burned down an old man's home," Saint said quietly. "Webb. He burned down everything Patterson owned: photographs, case files, 60 years of memories just to send a message. It was supposed to scare us. Did it work?" Emma thought about it. Thought about the flames, the smoke, the terror of waking up to find her world on fire. "No," she said. "It made me angry." Saint nodded slowly. "Good. Hold on to that anger. You're going to need it. What happens now?" "Now we wait. Ghost is pulling everything he can find on Webb and Whitmore. Patterson is filing his federal complaint. The FBI is opening an investigation." Saint turned to look at her. "And in about 6 hours, Lucas's bail hearing happens." "I thought Whitmore controlled the judges." "He controls the local judges. But Patterson pulled some strings, got the hearing moved to federal court due to the civil rights complaint. Different judge, different rules." Saint's scarred face split into something that might have been a smile. "Whitmore's about to find out what happens when you can't buy your way out of trouble." The federal courthouse was packed. Word had spread, somehow impossibly, the story had leaked to the press. Not the Savannah papers, which Whitmore controlled, but the national outlets. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. They were all there, cameras rolling, reporters shouting questions. Navy SEAL arrested for defending disabled woman, local billionaire's son, allegedly responsible. The headlines were everywhere. Emma saw them on phones, on tablets, on the screens inside news vans. The narrative had shifted. Lucas Mitchell wasn't a violent drifter anymore. He was a hero being railroaded by a corrupt system. Patterson had made sure of that. "Someone leaked the video to the press," Patterson said, standing beside Emma on the courthouse steps. "I have no idea who." "I'll bet you don't." Patterson smiled innocently. Inside the courtroom was standing room only. The wolf pack had taken up positions throughout the room, Bear near the door, Viper by the windows, Saint directly behind the defense table. They weren't in uniform, weren't armed, weren't doing anything threatening, but their presence filled the room like a physical force. Judge Margaret Chen presided, a small woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She was known for her independence, her integrity, and her absolute intolerance for political interference. Whitmore had tried to get her removed from the case. He'd failed. "Counselor," Judge Chen said, looking at the prosecutor. "I've reviewed the state's charges against Mr. Mitchell. Aggravated assault, possession of a dangerous animal, disorderly conduct." She set down her papers. "I've also reviewed the defense's evidence, including a rather compelling video that appears to show the alleged victim initiating the confrontation by assaulting a disabled woman." The prosecutor, Whitmore's nephew, a nervous young man who'd clearly never expected this case to end up in federal court, shifted uncomfortably. "Your Honor, the state maintains that—" "The state maintains what exactly?" Judge Chen cut him off. "That the defendant assaulted Mr. Whitmore unprovoked, because that's not what the video shows. That the defendant's dog attacked Mr. Whitmore, because the video shows the dog positioned defensively, never making contact." She leaned forward. "Would you like me to play the video for the court? I'm happy to do so." "That won't be necessary, Your Honor." "I didn't think so." Judge Chen turned to Patterson. "Counselor, I understand you've filed a Section 1983 complaint alleging civil rights violations." "Yes, Your Honor. My client was arrested without probable cause by Deputy Marcus Webb, who has documented financial ties to the Whitmore family. Additionally, the defense's witness that would be Miss Emma Hartley was the victim of an arson attack last night. We have reason to believe Deputy Webb was involved." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Chen banged her gavel. "Order." She waited for silence. "Mr. Patterson, those are serious allegations." "They are, Your Honor, which is why the FBI has opened an investigation into Deputy Webb and his relationship with Harrison Whitmore III. More murmurs, more gavel banging. "Given these circumstances," Judge Chen said, "I'm dismissing all state charges against Mr. Mitchell effective immediately. The civil rights complaint will proceed in federal court. Mr. Mitchell, you're free to go." The courtroom exploded. Reporters were shouting questions. Cameras were flashing. The prosecutor was gathering his papers with shaking hands, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. and Lucas Mitchell walked through the crowd, a free man for the first time in 4 days. Emma met him at the defense table. "Hey," she said. "Hey." Lucas was smiling, actually smiling, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, less haunted. "I owe you breakfast, remember? You owe me a lot more than breakfast." "I know." He reached out, took her hand. His grip was warm, strong, real. "Thank you for not giving up, for fighting when everyone else would have walked away." Emma felt tears pricking at her eyes. "I didn't do it alone. Your friends, they're terrifying, but they're amazing." "Yeah." Lucas looked over at Saint, at Bear, at Viper and Ghost. His brothers. His pack. "They are." "It's not over, is it?" Lucas's smile faded. "No. The charges are dropped, but Whitmore's still out there. Webb's still out there, and Patterson's house is still a pile of ashes." He squeezed her hand. "We won a battle. The war's just getting started." Outside, the press was waiting. Hundreds of them shouting questions, pushing microphones toward anyone who looked important. Patterson stepped up to the wall of cameras, his bathrobe finally replaced with a proper suit, his voice carrying clear and strong. "My client, Lucas Mitchell, has been fully exonerated of all charges. The video evidence proves beyond any doubt that he acted in defense of Miss Emma Hartley, who was assaulted by Brandon Whitmore IV. We will now be pursuing federal charges against Deputy Marcus Webb for civil rights violations, witness tampering, and attempted murder. Additionally, we are calling for a full investigation into Harrison Whitmore III and his influence over local law enforcement." "Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, is it true the Whitmore family offered you money to drop the case?" Patterson smiled. "I don't take bribes, son. Never have. Never will." "What about the fire at your home? Are you afraid for your safety?" "I'm 82 years old. I've faced down the Klan, the mob, and 3 different governors. I'm not afraid of Harrison Whitmore." Patterson looked directly into the cameras. "But he should be afraid of me." Across town, Harrison Whitmore III had watched the press conference on his office television. His hands were shaking. His face was pale. The empire he'd spent 40 years building was crumbling around him, and he didn't know how to stop it. His phone rang. "What?" he snarled. "Sir, the FBI is here." His assistant's voice trembled. "They have a warrant." Whitmore closed his eyes. He thought about running, about the private jet waiting at the airport, the accounts in the Caymans, the contacts who owed him favors. But when he opened his eyes, he saw them on the television screen. Lucas Mitchell, Emma Hartley, the dog between them. Standing on the courthouse steps, surrounded by cameras, looking like exactly what they were, heroes who'd beaten the villain. And behind them, barely visible in the crowd, 5 men with hard eyes and harder smiles. The wolves. Harrison Whitmore understood in that moment that there was nowhere he could run that they wouldn't find him. The game was over. But one last move remained to be played. Harrison Whitmore made his last phone call at 11:47 p.m. His hands were steady now. The trembling had stopped hours ago, replaced by something colder, something final. He sat alone in his study, the FBI warrant lying on his desk like a death sentence, and dialed a number he hadn't used in 15 years. "It's me," he said when the line connected. "I need a cleanup. Multiple targets." The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Addresses," Whitmore gave them. Patterson's temporary location at the Marriott. Emma Hartley's room at the same hotel. Lucas Mitchell's last known position. Timeline: tonight, before dawn. I want it done before anyone wakes up. That's expensive on short notice. Money isn't a problem. A pause. Then, consider it handled. Whitmore hung up. He poured himself a whiskey, drained it in one swallow, and stared out his window at the city he'd owned for 40 years. If he couldn't rule it, no one would. Ghost intercepted the call at 11:49 p.m. He'd been monitoring Whitmore's phones since the FBI warrant was served, running every outgoing signal through a decryption algorithm he'd designed himself. Most of the calls were lawyers panicking, executives damage control. Nothing useful. But this one was different. This one used a burner phone. A separate line. A voice Ghost didn't recognize but immediately understood. "Saint," Ghost's voice cracked through the earpiece. "We have a problem." Saint was already moving before Ghost finished explaining. He burst through Bear's hotel room door, grabbed the big man's shoulder and shook him awake. "Up! Now! We're blown!" Bear didn't ask questions. He was on his feet in 2 seconds, reaching for his go-bag. "Patterson and Emma," Bear asked. "Same hotel, 2 floors up. We've got maybe 20 minutes before the hit team arrives." "How many?" "Unknown. Whitmore used a cleanup crew professionals. Could be 4, could be 12. Bear's jaw tightened. "We're not armed. Left everything in the vehicles because we were trying to stay legal." "Then we get creative." They hit Patterson's room first. The old lawyer was asleep, snoring softly, his briefcase on the nightstand beside him. Saint shook him awake without ceremony. "Mr. Patterson, we need to move, now." Patterson blinked, confused. What time is—" "Whitmore hired killers. They're coming for you. Get dressed. You have 60 seconds. Patterson stared at him for one heartbeat. Then something hardened in his eyes, something that remembered worse times, darker nights, when men had come for him before. 60 seconds, he said. I only need 30. Emma was harder to wake. She'd finally fallen asleep around midnight exhaustion, dragging her under, despite the fear. Shadow was pressed against her side, his warmth a comfort in the unfamiliar hotel room. The dog heard Bear's knock before Emma did. He was on his feet, growling by the time Emma reached the door. It's Bear, the voice said through the wood. Open up. We need to go. Emma's heart was already racing. She fumbled with the lock, pulled the door open, and saw the look on Bear's face. What happened? Whitmore's making a move. Hit team's on the way. Hit team, you mean? I mean he's trying to kill us. All of us. Bear grabbed her arm, gentle but urgent. No time to pack. We go now. Emma looked at Shadow. The dog looked back at her, alert and ready. Where's Lucas? Viper's getting him. Meet at the extraction point in 10 minutes. Bear was already pulling her toward the stairs. Move! Lucas was 2 blocks away when his phone buzzed. Viper's voice. Incoming! Get off the street! Now! Lucas didn't hesitate. He ducked into an alley, pressing himself against the wall, Shadow tight against his leg. In the distance, he heard the sound of vehicles, multiple moving fast, no headlights. How many? He whispered into the phone. 3 vehicles. At least 8 men. They're not locals, movements are too coordinated. Whitmore brought in professionals. Emma and Patterson, Saint and Bear have them. They're moving to extraction. Lucas felt something cold settle in his chest. He'd known this was a possibility. Whitmore was a cornered animal now, desperate and dangerous. Men like that didn't surrender quietly. They lashed out. They tried to take everyone down with them. But knowing it was possible and living through it were 2 different things. Location on the hit team? Lucas asked. They just pulled into the hotel parking lot, moving toward the lobby. Then they're about to find empty rooms. Copy that. Saint wants you at the extraction point in 8 minutes. Can you make it? Lucas looked down at Shadow. The dog's eyes gleamed in the darkness, ready for whatever came next. We'll be there in 6. The hit team found nothing. 4 men swept Patterson's room, finding only rumpled sheets, and an empty bathroom. 4 more cleared Emma's room with identical results. The team leader, a former mercenary named Cole, who'd done work in Syria, Iraq, and a dozen other places where men died for money, stood in the hallway and swore under his breath. "They're gone," he said into his radio. "Someone warned them." Whitmore's voice crackled back, tight with fury. "Find them. They can't have gotten far. Sir, if they knew we were coming, I don't pay you for excuses. Find them or don't bother coming back." Cole looked at his men. 8 professionals armed and capable against a handful of civilians and 1 SEAL. Not great odds, but not impossible either. "Spread out," Cole ordered. "They're on foot. Check every exit, every alley, every vehicle leaving the area. Priority targets are the woman and the old man. The SEAL is secondary. If you engage him, engage to kill. No hesitation." The team moved. The warehouse was cold and dark. Saint had chosen it weeks ago as a fallback position, an abandoned storage facility near the docks, far from prying eyes. Ghost had rigged it with surveillance equipment, multiple exit routes, and enough supplies to hold out for 48 hours if necessary. Now it was full of people. Patterson sat on a crate, his breathing still heavy from the rush. Emma paced Shadow, trailing her like a 4-legged shadow. Bear stood by the door, watching the street through a crack in the metal siding. Viper had positioned himself on the roof, his eyes scanning the darkness. And Lucas stood in the center of the room, his mind racing through tactical options. "We need to call the FBI," Emma said. "Tell them what's happening. They have to help." "And already tried." Ghost's fingers never stopped moving across his laptop. "Agent Morrison's phone is going straight to voicemail. Same with his partner. Either they're asleep or someone's jamming their signals." "Can you unjam them?" "Working on it. Give me 10 minutes." "We might not have 10 minutes, Saint said. He was checking something on his phone, a tracking app connected to the surveillance network. "The hit team's spreading out. They're doing a grid search. Systematic. Professional." "How long until they find us?" Lucas asked. "At this rate, maybe an hour, maybe less." Patterson spoke up, his voice calm, despite everything. "Then we have an hour to figure out how to end this permanently." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Whitmore just ordered a hit on witnesses in an active federal investigation. That's not just criminal, it's catastrophically stupid. If we can document this, prove that he gave the order, his entire defense collapses. No jury in the world will give him sympathy." "How do we document it?" Emma asked. Ghost looked up from his laptop, a strange smile on his face. "I might have something." Everyone turned to look at him. "The phone call Whitmore made to order the hit, I intercepted it. Recorded it. Every word." Ghost's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I've got Harrison Whitmore III on tape ordering the murder of 3 civilians. If we can get this to the FBI, to the press, to anyone..." "He's finished," Lucas said. "More than finished. This is federal witness tampering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges I can think of off the top of my head." Ghost's smile widened. "Whitmore just handed us the nail for his coffin." "Then why are you smiling?" Emma asked. "We still have a hit team looking for us." "Because I also know where Whitmore is right now, and I know something he doesn't know." "What's that?" Ghost turned his laptop around to show them. A map, a blinking dot, a location. "I know that the FBI wasn't ignoring our calls. They were raiding his estate, right now. This very minute." He pointed at the screen. "Agent Morrison and his team are at Whitmore's front door. They've got warrants for everything, his computers, his phones, his files. And in about 20 minutes, they're going to discover that their target just ordered a hit on protected witnesses." Lucas stared at the screen. Whitmore doesn't know the FBI is at his house. He left before they arrived. He's on his way here trying to personally oversee the cleanup operation. Probably figured if he's going down, he might as well do it in person. Wait. Emma's voice was sharp. He's coming here. How does he know where we are? Ghost's expression flickered. A moment of doubt. Then his laptop beeped. An alert. A warning. Oh no, Ghost whispered. What? The hit team, they're not searching randomly, they've got a tracker. Ghost's fingers flew across the keyboard. Someone's phone is compromised. Someone in this room. Everyone looked at each other. Check your phones, Saint ordered. Now. Lucas pulled out his phone. Clean. Bear's was clean. Viper's was clean. Ghost's was clean. Patterson's was... Wait. Patterson held up his phone, his face pale. I got a new phone yesterday. After the fire. A temporary replacement. Ghost grabbed it, plugging it into his laptop. His face went white. It's spoofed. Someone installed tracking software in the firmware. It's been broadcasting our location for the last 2 hours. The cell phone store, Patterson breathed. Whitmore must own it. Of course he does, he owns half the city. How long until they find us? Lucas asked. Ghost checked the tracker, checked the hit team's movements, did the math. They already have. They're 2 blocks away, and closing. Lucas moved before anyone else could react. Bear Viper defensive positions. North and south exits. Saint, you're with me on the east side. Ghost keep trying to reach the FBI. Patterson. Emma. He looked at them, his jaw tight. Stay in the center of the building. Don't move unless I tell you to. Lucas. Emma grabbed his arm. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to. They're professionals. They have guns. You don't. Lucas looked at Shadow, who was already in combat stance. Ears flat, teeth bared. I've got something better. He disappeared into the darkness. The first attacker came through the north entrance. He was careful professional, leading with his weapon, checking corners. He'd done this 100 times in a dozen countries. He knew how to clear a building, how to neutralize threats, how to eliminate targets. He didn't know about Bear. The big man hit him from behind like a freight train. One massive arm wrapped around the attacker's throat, cutting off air and sound simultaneously. The other hand grabbed the gun, twisting it away with practiced ease. 3 seconds. No noise. No alarm. Bear lowered the unconscious body to the floor and picked up the weapon. 1 down, he whispered into his earpiece. 7 to go. Viper got the second one. The attacker was moving along the south wall, confident in his training, when something cold pressed against the back of his neck. Drop the gun, Viper said softly. Or I drop you. The attacker dropped the gun. Viper's fist connected with the back of his skull, and he crumpled. 2 down. Cole knew something was wrong. His men weren't checking in. 2 of them had gone dark in the space of 4 minutes. No gunfire, no distress signals, just silence. These weren't ordinary civilians. These were hunters. Cole adjusted his tactics. He pulled his remaining men closer, switched to a defensive formation. They would move together, covering each other, clearing the building section by section. No more solo approaches. No more easy targets. Stay tight, he ordered, and shoot anything that moves. Lucas heard them coming. 6 men now moving in formation, their footsteps synchronized. Professional. Dangerous. The kind of men who didn't make mistakes. He looked at Shadow. The dog looked back, waiting for the command. Remember Kandahar, Lucas whispered. Shadow's tail gave one small wag. Just like that. On my signal. Lucas stepped out of the shadows. Evening, gentlemen. 6 guns swung toward him instantly. 6 fingers tightened on triggers. Wait. Cole ordered, his eyes narrowing. "You're Mitchell, the SEAL." "Guilty. You know we're not here for you. We want the woman and the old man. Hand them over and you can walk away." Lucas smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Here's a counteroffer. You turn around, walk out of here, and tell Whitmore his war is over. The FBI is raiding his estate right now. By morning he'll be in federal custody. Whatever he's paying you, it's not worth dying for a man who's already finished." Cole hesitated. Lucas saw it, the flicker of doubt in his eyes. "You're lying." "I'm not. But you don't have to take my word for it. Call Whitmore. Ask him where he is right now. Ask him why he left his mansion in such a hurry." One of Cole's men shifted nervously. "Boss, what if he's telling the truth?" "Shut up." "The FBI's been investigating Whitmore for days," Lucas continued. "Bank fraud, bribery, obstruction of justice, and as of about an hour ago, conspiracy to commit murder. That's the phone call he made to hire you. We have it recorded." Cole's face went pale. "That's right. Every word. If you kill us, you're not just murderers, you're federal witnesses in a RICO case. The kind of witnesses the FBI really wants to talk to." Lucas took a step forward. "So here's your choice. Walk away now and disappear. Or stay and spend the rest of your lives in a federal supermax explaining how you helped Harrison Whitmore try to cover up his crimes." Silence. Cole looked at his men. His men looked at each other. "This is bull," one of them muttered. But his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Lucas pulled out his phone, hit speaker. "Ghost. Play the recording." Whitmore's voice filled the warehouse, tinny but unmistakable. "I need a cleanup. Multiple targets. Tonight. Before dawn. I want it done before anyone wakes up." The mercenaries listened. Their faces changed. Doubt crept in, then fear, then something that looked a lot like self-preservation. "He recorded himself ordering the hit," one of them said. That means he's finished," Lucas said. "And anyone still working for him when the FBI arrives is finished too." Cole stared at Lucas for a long, tense moment. Then he lowered his gun. "We're done here." "Boss?" One of his men stepped forward. "We can't just—" "Yes, we can." Cole was already moving toward the exit. "I don't do federal cases. I don't do recordings. And I sure as hell don't do life sentences for a client who was stupid enough to use his real voice on a phone call." He looked back at Lucas. "You got lucky, SEAL." Luck had nothing to do with it. Cole almost smiled. Then he was gone, his men following their footsteps fading into the night. Lucas stood alone in the darkness, his heart pounding. "Clear," he said into his earpiece. "All clear." Emma was crying when he found her, not from fear, from relief. She threw herself at him the moment he emerged from the shadows, her arms wrapping around his neck, her face pressed against his chest. "I thought I heard them talking. I thought, it's okay." Lucas held her close, feeling her trembling. "It's over. They're gone." How did you—" "I gave them a choice. They made the smart one." Patterson approached, leaning heavily on a crate. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were bright. "The FBI?" he asked. "Ghost confirmed it. They've secured Whitmore's estate. Found enough evidence to bury him twice over. Financial records, communications, the whole corrupt network." Lucas looked at Ghost, who was grinning at his laptop. "And in about 5 minutes, they're going to get an anonymous tip about Whitmore's current location." "Where is he?" Ghost pointed at his screen. "About 6 blocks from here. He's been circling the area in his car, waiting for confirmation that we're dead." Ghost's grin widened. "He's going to be very surprised." The FBI took Harrison Whitmore into custody at 4:17 a.m. He didn't fight, didn't resist, just sat in his car staring straight ahead as the agents surrounded him. The man who'd ruled Savannah for 40 years, looked suddenly old. Broken. Empty. They found the burner phone in his pocket, the one he'd used to order the hit, the one that matched perfectly with Ghost's recording. Agent Morrison read him his rights in a voice that held no sympathy. Harrison Whitmore III, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, bribery of public officials, obstruction of justice, and violations of federal RICO statutes. You have the right to remain silent. Whitmore closed his eyes. He didn't open them again until they put him in the back of the federal vehicle. And by then the sun was coming up over Savannah, painting the city gold and pink, the same city that had belonged to him for so long, now slipping through his fingers like sand. Deputy Webb was arrested 2 hours later. He tried to run when he saw the federal vehicles pull up to his house. Made it about 30 feet before 2 agents tackled him into his own lawn. They found evidence of bribes going back 15 years, payments from Whitmore's shell companies, communications about evidence tampering, witness intimidation, false arrests. Webb cried when they put the cuffs on him, actually cried, tears streaming down his face, begging for mercy. He didn't get any. Brandon Whitmore IV was the last to fall. He'd barricaded himself in his penthouse apartment, convinced that Daddy's lawyers would fix everything, that this was all a misunderstanding, that someone would make it go away like they always did. No one came. When the FBI finally breached the door, they found him hiding in a closet, clutching his phone, trying to call lawyers who weren't answering. He screamed about his rights, about who his father was, about how they couldn't do this to him. The agents didn't respond. They just cuffed him, read him his rights, and walked him out past the cameras that had gathered outside. The footage played on every news channel in the country. Whitmore dynasty collapses. Father and son arrested in federal corruption sweep. Emma watched from Patterson's temporary office. Shadow curled at her feet, Lucas standing beside her. The ticker scrolled across the bottom of the screen, listing charges, naming names, describing the scope of the investigation. "It's really over," she whispered. "The arrests are over," Patterson said. He was sitting behind a borrowed desk, looking more alive than he had in days. "The trials are just beginning. But with the evidence Ghost secured the recorded phone call, the testimony we'll provide, Whitmore won't see the outside of a prison for the rest of his life. And Brandon, same. Assault charges plus conspiracy when they link him to his father's network. He's going away for a very long time." Lucas put his hand on Emma's shoulder. She reached up, covered it with her own. "What now?" she asked. Patterson smiled. "Now we rebuild. The house, the practice, everything Whitmore tried to destroy." He looked at Lucas. "And I believe you have some unfinished business with the United States Navy." Lucas nodded slowly. His deployment orders were still valid. His team was waiting. But for the first time in years, he wasn't sure he wanted to go. He looked at Emma. She looked back, her eyes full of something he couldn't quite name. "We should talk," he said. "Yeah," she agreed. "We should." Outside, the sun was fully up now, burning away the last shadows of the night. A new day, a new beginning. And somewhere in the ruins of the Whitmore Empire, justice finally had been served. The conversation happened 3 days later. 3 days of press conferences, FBI interviews, and legal depositions. 3 days of watching the Whitmore Empire collapse on every news channel. 3 days of avoiding the one conversation they both knew was coming. Lucas found Emma on the rooftop of the hotel where they'd been relocated, a safe house arranged by the FBI until the trial preparations were complete. Shadow was with her, lying at her feet, his head resting on his paws. "You're supposed to be resting," Lucas said. "Couldn't sleep." Emma didn't look at him. She was staring at something in the distance, something he couldn't see. My leg's been acting up. The doctors say it's stress-related. Lucas sat down beside her, close enough to touch, but not quite touching. I talked to my commanding officer this morning. Emma's body tensed almost imperceptibly. And my deployment's been pushed back. 2 weeks. The Navy wants me to testify at the federal trial before I leave. That's good. Her voice was carefully neutral. Patterson will be happy. Emma. What? Lucas reached out and took her hand. She flinched but didn't pull away. Look at me, he said. She turned. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. She'd been crying, he realized. Maybe for hours. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. A week ago I was trying to get a cashier job. Now, I'm a federal witness. My face is on every news channel, and the only person who makes me feel safe is about to deploy to God knows where for God knows how long. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I finally found something good, something real, and it's already slipping away. Lucas squeezed her hand. I'm not slipping away. You're leaving in 2 weeks. I'm coming back. People say that. People say that all the time, and then they don't. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled something out, a small metal object that gleamed in the early morning light. His trident insignia. The eagle anchor and trident that symbolized everything he was. Everything he'd sacrificed to become. Do you know what this means? He asked. Emma looked at it. It means you're a SEAL. It means I don't quit. It means I don't leave my people behind. It means when I make a promise, I keep it. He pressed the trident into her palm, closing her fingers around it. I need you to hold on to this for me. Why? Because I'm coming back for it. Lucas met her eyes. I'm coming back for you. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what I have to do. You held the line when everyone else would have run. You fought for me when you had every reason to walk away. His voice cracked slightly. I've never met anyone like you, Emma, and I'm not going to lose you now. Emma stared at the trident in her hand. Then she looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You better come back, she said, because I'm not done yelling at you for turning my life upside down. Lucas laughed a real laugh, surprised out of him. That's fair. And you owe me breakfast. You promised me the biggest breakfast Savannah has ever seen. I remember. Good. Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Because I'm holding you to it. And Shadow lifted his head, looking between them, and let out a soft bark of approval. The trial began 6 weeks later. It was the biggest federal case Savannah had seen in half a century. Reporters from every major network camped outside the courthouse. Legal analysts speculated endlessly on every development. The entire nation watched as the Whitmore dynasty was systematically dismantled. Emma testified on the 3rd day. She walked into the courtroom using a cane, the same hickory cane Lucas had carved for her before he deployed. Her hands were steady. Her voice was clear. She looked at Harrison Whitmore III sitting at the defense table in his prison jumpsuit and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Ms. Hartley, the prosecutor began, can you describe what happened on the morning of June 15th? Emma took a breath. I went to Magnolia's diner to apply for a job. Brandon Whitmore took the only handicapped parking spot, so I had to park 2 blocks away. By the time I got inside, I was exhausted and in pain. The interview didn't go well. As I was leaving, Brandon Whitmore deliberately tripped me with his foot. What happened next? I fell. I asked him to apologize. He refused. Then he shoved me to the ground. And then, Emma's eyes moved to the gallery where Patterson sat, watching her with pride, where Ghost had his laptop open, ready to display evidence at a moment's notice, Where bear, viper, and saint sat in a row, their presence a silent reminder that she was not alone. Then Lucas Mitchell walked in, Emma said, and everything changed. The video played on every screen in the courtroom. High-definition footage from the delivery truck's dashcam showing the entire incident in brutal clarity. Brandon tripping Emma, Brandon shoving her, Brandon pulling the knife, Lucas defending her without excessive force, Shadow blocking the attack without biting. The defense tried to object, tried to claim the footage was doctored, tampered with, inadmissible. Judge Margaret Chen overruled every objection. The footage speaks for itself, counselor. Unless you have evidence of tampering, actual evidence, not speculation, I suggest you move on. The defense lawyer sat down. His client stared at the screen with hollow eyes. Harrison Whitmore III had aged 20 years since his arrest. The man who had ruled Savannah like a king now looked like a prisoner awaiting execution. His hair had gone gray. His face was gaunt. His hands trembled constantly. Emma felt no sympathy. She remembered the night his men had firebombed Patterson's house. She remembered the terror of running through dark streets with Shadow not knowing if she would live until morning. She remembered the cold calculation in Whitmore's voice on that recorded phone call. I want it done before anyone wakes up. This man had tried to kill her. Had tried to kill Patterson, Lucas, everyone who stood against him. He deserved whatever came next. The prosecution called Ghost on the fourth day. The hacker looked desperately uncomfortable in his suit and tie, squinting under the fluorescent lights like a vampire dragged into daylight. But his testimony was devastating. I intercepted a phone call at 11:47 p.m. on June 22nd. Ghost explained, his voice gaining confidence as he spoke about his area of expertise. The call was made from a burner phone registered to a shell company that traces back to Whitmore Holdings. The voice on the recording matches Harrison Whitmore III with 99.7% certainty, according to 3 independent voice analysis labs. The recording played. Whitmore's voice filled the courtroom. I need a cleanup. Multiple targets. Tonight, before dawn. I want it done before anyone wakes up. The jury's faces said everything. Horror. Disgust. Revulsion. The defense didn't even try to cross-examine. Patterson delivered the closing argument on the 7th day. The old lawyer stood before the jury, his voice carrying the weight of 60 years of fighting for justice. His house was gone, rebuilt from ashes now. His life had been threatened. His clients had nearly been murdered. But Samuel Patterson was still standing. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he began, you've heard testimony from 17 witnesses. You've seen video evidence, phone records, financial documents. You've listened to Harrison Whitmore III in his own voice ordering the murder of 3 innocent people. He paused, letting the words sink in. But this case isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about power, who has it, how they use it, and what happens when they abuse it. For 40 years, Harrison Whitmore believed he was above the law. He bought judges, bribed police officers, intimidated witnesses. He created a system where his family could assault a disabled woman in broad daylight and face no consequences. Patterson turned to look at Whitmore. Their eyes met. He was wrong. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit murder. Witness tampering. Bribery. Obstruction of justice. RICO violations. 27 charges in total, each one a nail in the coffin of the Whitmore dynasty. Harrison Whitmore III collapsed when the verdict was read. Actually collapsed, slumping in his chair, his lawyer having to catch him before he hit the floor. Brandon Whitmore, tried separately, received 18 years. Deputy Marcus Webb got 12. The corrupt judge, The complicit prosecutors, the compromised police officers, they all fell one by one like dominoes in a chain reaction that Patterson had set in motion from that first meeting in his crumbling antebellum office. The system that had tried to destroy them was destroyed instead. Emma was waiting outside the courthouse when the verdict came down. Reporters swarmed her immediately, shoving microphones in her face, shouting questions. Ms. Hartley. How do you feel about the verdict? Ms. Hartley. Do you have a statement? Ms. Hartley. Is it true you're writing a book? Emma looked at them, at the cameras, the lights, the hungry faces, desperate for a soundbite. I feel grateful, she said quietly. Grateful for Mr. Patterson, who fought for us when no one else would. Grateful for the FBI agents who investigated this case. Grateful for the jury who saw through the lies. She paused. And grateful for Lucas Mitchell, who taught me that standing up for what's right is worth any cost. Where is Mr. Mitchell now? Emma smiled. Doing what he does best. Protecting people who can't protect themselves. The reporters wanted more. They always wanted more. But Emma was done talking. She walked away, Shadow at her side, the trident insignia heavy in her pocket. Waiting. Lucas came home on a Tuesday. No fanfare, no ceremony. Just a military transport landing at Hunter Army Airfield, and a man in dusty fatigues walking across the tarmac with a duffel bag over his shoulder. Emma was there. She'd been there since 0400, when Ghost had hacked into the flight manifest and told her the exact arrival time. She'd driven to the airfield in the dark, parked in the lot where families waited for their soldiers, and sat in her car, watching the sky lighten from black to gray to gold. Shadow sat beside her, whining softly, sensing something big was about to happen. The transport touched down at 0647. Emma watched the cargo door open, watched soldiers file out in ones and twos, greeted by wives and children and parents. And then she saw him. Lucas looked older, harder. There were new lines around his eyes, new shadows in his expression. He walked with the careful gait of a man who'd been through something terrible and was still processing it. But when he saw her, when their eyes met across the tarmac, his whole face changed. He dropped his duffel bag and ran. Emma ran too. Forget the cane, forget the pain, forget everything except the man racing toward her with tears streaming down his face. They collided in the middle of the parking lot, arms wrapped around each other, holding on like they'd never let go. You came back, Emma sobbed into his chest. You actually came back. I promised. Lucas's voice was thick, broken. I promised I would. Shadow was barking, circling them, his tail wagging so hard his entire body shook. Lucas knelt down, burying his face in the dog's fur, and Emma knelt beside them, her hand on Lucas's back, feeling the tremors running through his body. What happened out there? She whispered. Lucas shook his head. Later. I'll tell you later. Right now His voice cracked. I just need this. I just need to know this is real. It's real. Emma cupped his face in her hands, making him look at her. I'm real. Shadow's real. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Lucas stared at her for a long moment. Then he kissed her. It wasn't a movie kiss, dramatic and perfect, and scored by swelling music. It was desperate and clumsy, and tasted like tears. It was two broken people finding each other in the wreckage of their lives and deciding to be broken together. When they finally pulled apart, Lucas pressed his forehead against hers. I believe you owe me something, Emma said. What's that? She smiled through her tears. The biggest breakfast Savannah has ever seen. The celebration happened 3 days later. Patterson's new house, rebuilt on the ashes of the old one, but twice as big, was filled with people, Bear was manning a massive grill in the backyard, arguing barbecue philosophy with Mrs. Pemberton, who had somehow become his biggest fan. Ghost sat in the corner with his laptop, avoiding sunlight as usual, but smiling more than Emma had ever seen him smile. Viper was teaching kids from the neighborhood how to tie sailors' knots. Saint stood by the fence, quiet as always, watching everyone with those sharp, scarred eyes that missed nothing. Earl Jenkins, the truck driver, whose dashcam footage had saved them all, had driven down from Jacksonville with his wife. Patterson had paid off his mortgage as a thank you, though Earl kept insisting it wasn't necessary. "You saved my granddaughter's hero," Earl said, his eyes misty. "That's payment enough." Emma moved through the party shadow at her heels, her heart fuller than she'd ever imagined possible. She'd spent 6 months believing her life was over, that the accident had taken everything from her, her career, her purpose, her future. She'd been wrong. She found Lucas standing apart from the crowd, watching the sunset, with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Hey," she said, slipping her hand into his. "You okay?" "Yeah." Lucas squeezed her fingers. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About what comes next." He turned to face her. "I talked to my CO today about extending my leave, taking some time to figure things out. And he said yes." Lucas took a breath. "I have 6 months. 6 months to decide if I'm re-enlisting or—" He trailed off. "Or what? Or staying here. With you." He met her eyes. "I've spent 10 years serving my country. I don't regret any of it. But I've also spent 10 years alone, moving from deployment to deployment, never putting down roots, never letting anyone get close." His voice softened. "Then I met you. And suddenly I wanted things I'd never let myself want before." Emma felt tears pricking at her eyes. What things? A home, a family, someone to come back to who wasn't just a concept but a real person who knew me, really knew me and wanted me anyway. "Lucas, I'm not asking you to make any decisions. I know we've only known each other a few months. I know it's crazy to talk about the future when we're still figuring out the present." He pulled something from his pocket, the trident insignia she'd been carrying since he left. "But I want you to know that when I gave you this, I wasn't just making a promise to come back. I was making a promise to stay." Emma looked at the trident, then at Lucas, then at Shadow, who was watching them with those wise, patient eyes. "You're an idiot," she said. Lucas blinked. "What? I said you're an idiot." Emma grabbed his shirt and pulled him close. "You think I've been carrying this thing around for months because I was waiting for you to come back. I was waiting for you to figure out what I already knew. Which is that I love you." The words came out fierce, almost angry. "I love you, Lucas Mitchell. I loved you when you knelt beside me on that diner floor. I loved you when you stood up to Brandon Whitmore with nothing but a dog and a bad attitude. I loved you every single day you were gone, and I love you now standing here asking me questions you already know the answers to." Lucas stared at her. Then he started to laugh. "What's so funny?" Emma demanded. "Nothing. Everything." He was crying again. She realized crying and laughing at the same time. "I spent the whole flight home rehearsing what I was going to say. This whole speech about taking it slow and not rushing things and giving you space to figure out what you wanted. I know what I want. I can see that." "Good." Emma kissed him hard and quick, and leaving no room for doubt. "So stop talking and start living. We've wasted enough time." Lucas pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "One condition," he said. "What? We get married at this house. Patterson's new place. With Bear cooking the food and Ghost handling the music and the whole pack standing beside me." Emma laughed, a bright, joyful sound that she barely recognized as her own. "You're proposing to me at a barbecue." "I'm proposing to you surrounded by everyone who fought for us, everyone who believed in us when the whole world was against us." Lucas looked around at the celebration, at Patterson raising a glass at Bear, flipping burgers at the brothers who had crossed the country to save him. "This is my family now. Our family. And I want them there when we start our life together." Emma followed his gaze, took in the faces of the people who had become impossibly her people too. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes to the wedding, yes to the family, yes to all of it." She pressed her hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm. Yes to walking again. Together. Whatever comes next. Shadow barked, circling them, his tail creating a whirlwind of joy. Bear looked up from the grill and let out a whoop. "Did he finally ask her?" "He finally asked?" Emma shouted back. The party erupted. Patterson was crying. Mrs. Pemberton was crying. Even Viper cracked something that might have been a smile. Saint walked over his scarred face, solemn, and held out his hand. "Welcome to the pack," he said. Emma shook his hand. "Thank you for saving him." "You saved him." Saint's eyes were steady, certain. "We just helped." The sun went down over Savannah, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The music played. The laughter rose. The family gathered around their newest members, celebrating not just a victory or a survival, but a beginning. A new chapter. A new life. Emma looked at Lucas. Lucas looked at Emma. Shadow pressed between them, his warmth a bridge connecting their hearts. They had been broken, both of them. Shattered by circumstance, beaten down by a world that seemed determined to destroy them. But they had found each other in the wreckage, had chosen to fight when everyone else would have surrendered, had built something beautiful out of ashes and pain and stubborn, relentless hope. The rich couple who had knocked her down thought they could make her stay there. They were wrong. Because Emma Hartley was a fighter. Lucas Mitchell was a warrior. And together, surrounded by brothers and sisters forged in fire, they were unstoppable. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for a hero to save them. Emma and Lucas had learned a different truth. The real heroes are the ones who save each other. And that is exactly what they did.